Hi, welcome back to the show. We are live here on Facebook Live as well as on the new campus on the air FM signal 95.9 FM. And good to have you along with us. Again, today will be our final show of the week because we're traveling to Ole Miss for baseball. And looking forward to that trip. This Natalie dress guy beside me knows a thing or two about traveling as a student athlete here at Furman. In fact, he did it for two different teams, two different programs. Clint Hill was a baseball player and a soccer player here at Furman. And now, exactly what is your official title?
It depends on the day, but my
Chief
official
cook and bottle washer?
Yeah, right. Yeah, my official title is Director of Athletics Development.
There we go. Which is a fancy way of saying go out and raise money, right?
Yeah, I'm in charge of Paladin Club scholarship fundraising, capital projects, all athletic fundraising. And, of course, recently, you know this, Dan, we've been on the road trying to raise a bunch of money for our new football coach and his staff and get the program back at the championship level that we want it to be at.
Oh, you're looking great. If the job is stressing you out, it doesn't show.
Well, you know, when you're stressed, though, the way that I get stressed, I don't eat and I don't sleep. So then, you thin up and you stay fit.
Well, you see, I'm just the opposite. So that's another story for another time. I've said this probably 100 times since Clay was hired. And being in this building, I've had a different perspective than maybe other coaching hires that I've seen in almost 20 years of covering Division I athletics. But the excitement surrounding this football program and this particular hire and the offensive staff, particularly, that he's brought in is unlike anything that I've ever seen. Prior to when the search was going on, every Furman person I talked to say Clay Hendrix is the guy that I'd like to see get the job.
Yeah.
And once he got it, this place is almost vibrating.
Yeah, what I've noticed and really been impressed with, Dan, is he's a relationship guy, which is the word that people use about Furman a lot. This is a relationship place. But he, was at the Air Force, but he kept his relationships with all of his Furman people. I've been shocked at how many people said, yeah, I talked to Clay the last 7 or 8 years, when he's been out at Air Force. Like, how does Clay have time to do all of that and stay in touch with all these Furman people? But that's just the type of person that he is. So it's been really surprising when we've sat down and said, well, how are we going to go about raising this money and how you want to run your alumni association. And, of course, the FFPA is already, a very sound group that they run themselves. But, how do we grow it? And he said, well, started naming off all these names. And I said, Clay, you've stayed in touch with all these people. And, there's several people that we've tried to call on for the football team over the years that, won't return our emails or phone calls. And which is, I get that a lot in my business, yes. Right? Everybody knows.
People know why you're calling.
Yeah, people know why you're calling. And I don't take offense to it. There's a time and a place for everything. But, Clay's like, yeah, well, I went fishing with him last summer. Like, man, okay, great. And all of a sudden there's people coming to the table that really want to support the program, not only with their time, but their resources, which, of course, at Furman, we're always fighting. We to be champions, we've got to support the programs at championship levels. So the last month or so has been a fun time. It's been hard out on the road, but it's been a lot of fun, and I really believe in this new staff.
Well, you and Mike Buddy, and I'm sure associated other people took Clay, and you went on this 5-city world tour, I called it. Greenville and Charleston and Charlotte, Atlanta, and Nashville, getting him in front of Furman boosters with the intent of starting the ball rolling on a project to raise $1 million for the football program to supplement its operating budget. That's right. to be able to have the money when needed to go out on the road and do things, or to pay assistant coaches or do whatever. It's not like the money is going to be spent frivolously. It's to allow this program to compete at the same level with the other teams in the conference. How was the turnout? How was Clay? How was Furman received at these stops?
It was great. The one thing that we did differently this time, and this was a strategy that we went into it with, is, a lot of times you go into these types of events and you say, hey, come, it's a happy hour, and come get some food, and then we may talk to you, but then you hit them with the fundraising at the end, right? Well, we went out and said, hey, here's what we're doing. We want you to come. We want you to support Coach. We want you to meet Coach, but we want you to, to write a check too, or make a pledge. So we were real aggressive with that. So when you get anybody to show up in the room, Dan, after you tell them what you're going to do, that's really positive. But we had really great turnout in every city, and everybody came in with great questions and a lot of really positive energy. I'm happy to say after a month of being on the road and all of our stops, we already have pledged $350,000 for the football program towards that $1 million goal. Now, obviously, we've got more work to be done, but what we want to do now, what we'll do is we'll follow up with all the folks who we invited and who attended. Clay and I were joking the other day, and Mike Buddy, everybody, we had the pledge forms that we passed out. Everybody had one in their hands. It doesn't do any good unless you fill it out, right? Everybody walked away with it, and 5 or 6 people came ready with a check, and they wanted to support right there on the spot. But most people, normal people, have to go home and check with their spouse and figure out what they can do financially. So we'll be following up with all the people who were at the events over all the cities over the next several months to get that closer to $1 million. And one thing that I will say here on the air, Dan, is that $1 million isn't just for this year. The $1 million that we're trying to raise is going to be spread out over 5 years. So it's $200,000 extra a year for Clay to work with to make sure the program's taken care of.
I love the fact that you just told people up front what you're doing. And I think that's probably the right tactic to take in a situation like this. And as you're telling me that story, I couldn't help but laugh. This is not in any way, shape, or form the same thing. But on the other hand, it kind of is. Anytime you go to a professional stadium, sometimes even college stadiums, but I'm thinking specifically when I go to see the Reds in Cincinnati, there are always people on the street who are begging. Right. And we'll work for food, been doing this, that, and the other. Well, there's always this one guy, and this is a true story. There's always this one guy who sits across the street from the ballpark, on the sidewalk going back into town, and he sits there cross-legged, and he holds up a little cardboard sign, Clint, and it says, "Why lie? I want beer." And you know that he gets more in his little hat than anybody else out there doing the same thing gets, because I guess there's a streak of honesty to it. Now, it's not the same thing, but it is the same thing, because you're just telling people up front, this is what we need, this is what we're doing. And just the fact that people showed up in those numbers, I think, speaks well of Clay and of what you're doing here. Yeah,
there's no question, and there's no reason to. I mean, it's a worthy cause, and it's something that at Furman is a rally cry. I mean, if we want our programs to be great, we have to support them at that level, and that's what we're out and saying. Look, here's what we can spend out of the tuition dollars to support Furman athletics. If that's not as good as we want it to be out on the field, then we have to rally together to make it great. And we've been preaching the men's basketball story as well, cross country, women's golf. These alumni groups 5 and 6 years back got together and said, we want these programs to be great, and we're willing to put some skin in the game. You fast forward 5 or 6 years, basketball team won a share of the conference championship this year. Our cross-country team is top 20. Both programs are top 20 in the country. Our women's golf team is top 10 in the country.
Yeah, people are saying the women's golf team is a legitimate national championship contender.
Yeah, it's proven that Furman is a place where excellence exists, but we just have to fund it in an excellent way. So that's really to me, that's the only thing, and why I have a job. It's the only thing standing in the way of Clay and his program. And one of the things that he said on the road was every decision that he makes over the last several months, he has to consider the budget. He talked about one of the goalposts breaking. Nobody anticipates that. When the goalpost breaks, you got to figure out $4,500. Okay, do I send my coaches out recruiting this spring, or do I fix the goalpost? Those are the types of decisions that Clay's having to make. I don't think Dabo Swinney has to make that kind of decision.
Right.
But at Furman and at our level, we don't have $85 million in revenue coming in from TV and the conference. So these are things that the $200,000 extra dollars a year will make Clay's life easier. So he doesn't have to be a fundraiser. He doesn't have to pinch pennies. He can mentor, he can coach, and he can recruit.
Right.
That's what he gets paid to do. So we want to make life easier so he can focus on those things.
This is Clint Hill, as our high-tech graphics people have so cleverly been able to point out, sitting here to my left and on the right of your screen as you look at it. But it is the biggest challenge that you have in your job simply the fact that because Furman is a small private school, that you don't have the alumni numbers that other schools have? Is that the biggest challenge you have? I mean, where we may graduate 700-800 in a class, you look at what Clemson's going to graduate, you look at what South Carolina's going to graduate, heck, you look at what other schools inside the Southern Conference that are public universities
Right.
are going to graduate. The alumni bases are significantly bigger. So I'll ask it this way: how big of a challenge is that?
It's big, and I think one of the stories that I tell a lot to get sort of wrap my brain around it is when I was in college at Furman. I remember people saying, "Okay, it's Friday, it's Saturday night, let's go out. Sigma Nu's having a party," and I would say, "Well, who else is having parties?" And they're like, "What difference does that make? We're going to go to the Sigma Nu house." And I said, "Well, it does, because at Furman, if the Sigma Nus and the Teaks and the Sigma Chi's are all having parties, then there's going to be 50 people at each party, and it's not going to be a great time. But if there's one party, then we'll have 150 or 200 people at one event, and then all of a sudden it's a big time, and you feel like you're really doing something."
Until the cops show up.
Well,
yeah.
I never went to those kind of parties, Dan.
Good for you.
Yeah, that's right.
Good for you.
But that's what we're trying to do now,
Yeah.
right? When we're out raising money for the football program right now, it's like we're trying to have one big party, and it's 5 or 6 Saturdays a fall right here at Paladin Stadium. So we have to have everybody get involved. It can't be just former football players. A lot of the former football players are already supporting and already giving money and coming to games and buying tickets. But who else in the Greenville community, for instance, that's moving to town? I mean, Greenville's such a booming industry. Like, how do we attract those people, and how can we get them on campus and supporting the program that we know, can be great, and we have been great. The tradition at this school is so unbelievable that we just need to get it back to that level. And you're right, we're a smaller group, which means we all have to rally together to be successful.
Yeah. I understand the spirit that I'm going to ask this next question in, because I'm just trying to probe your mind to see some of the challenges that you face. But you know what? And then the question just went whoop. It just went away. It'll come back.
It sounded like a difficult question.
Yeah.
Though. I'm glad it was
Oh,
gone.
no. It'll come back here in just a moment. But in my prefacing the question, I forgot what the question was. While we're doing that, are there any other events planned? I know spring practice is going on now. We'll resume after spring break. But any other events planned to get Clay out in front of other people?
Yeah, if you're local in particular, on March 24th, we have a series, our Alumni Association has a series called the Greenville Business Breakfast. Actually, we do it in Charlotte, Nashville, Atlanta as well. But on March 24th, it's a breakfast at the new clubhouse, Greenville Country Club at Riverside. Clay and Mike Buddy and George Corals are going to speak to the group that breakfast. So we'd love to we'd love to have you out. Come to that. You can just go onto the alumni website and register for that. We'd love to see you. The other news that I'd like to share. We just decided actually the other day that we are moving the Spring Athletic Festival date. Previously announced it was going to be on March 25th, which is the last spring practice for the football team. But talking with coaches, with some of the injuries that they have, especially on defense, they're not sure they can actually have a scrimmage, a full scrimmage. And we also only have one other event going on that day. We're going to move that spring festival to April 22nd. Which will put it a little later in the year. Hopefully the weather will be better then. And, of course, that activity and that event is meant to draw Greenville's community here.
Right.
Come experience Furman athletics and our beautiful campus and really draw more people out here. We'll have the jumpy castles for the kids. We'll have the face painting, and, they'll spray paint their hair purple. We'll have cotton candy. Men's baseball as opposed to women's baseball.
Right.
Baseball. Doubleheader for softball. The SoCon men's and women's SoCon tennis tournament will be happening that day on campus, and the men's lacrosse team plays their final match that day as well. So between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m., we'll have food trucks, we'll have a beer garden, we'll have live music. I mean, it's going to be a big time. So that's one announcement that I'd like to make, is that we've changed that date from March 25th to April 22nd.
Good. I'm glad you got that in, because I remembered the question, and after I ask it, you may not want to finish the interview. No, I'm just kidding. But here's the thing, and you can tell me your experience in dealing with Furman people in your job. But I know from a media standpoint that I hear it all the time. I see it on the message boards. I hear it from people that I talk to. Furman doesn't get enough coverage. Furman doesn't get the coverage in the Greenville News. All they care about is Clemson and South Carolina. You don't get any Furman coverage here, yada, yada, yada. And I get that. The idea has been broached by more than one person. Well, how about we go and put up a pay site like Clemson has about 8 that cover them. Mm-hmm. All the schools have. So, a website where you pay for content and you get that kind of coverage. Oh, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to pay for anything. We want it. You see where I'm going with this? Is that an issue that you run into as well, that some people want the great product,
right,
but they don't want to make the investment to help get the great product?
Yeah, I think that's accurate. For some people understand and get that, we can't, you can't continue to rely on other people. And one of the things that I see in the field, one of the biggest complaints that I get, Dan, is that, tuition has gotten so high. Well, what do you think funds the athletic department? I mean, the tuition is how the athletic department even exists. So unless people are giving back, and not just to athletics, but to academics and the departments that meant something to them, we can't control the tuition, because we have to have those tuition dollars on the revenue side to pay for all the great programming that we have, whether at athletics or music or art. So that's the thing that, we're, as a development department, having to try to message. It's like, this is a partnership, partner with us in keeping these programs great and making them better. Even that would be even better, right? To make these programs thrive even more than they are. But yeah, I mean, it's a good point that you're making, and it's something that, I think all nonprofits deal with.
Yeah.
It's the messaging, and how do you connect with people in a way that makes them want to participate, and not just show up and sort of, milk the system.
Right.
And one of the things I will say too, that it's sort of it goes back to me to being the type of university that we are. We're a relationship-driven university. We're a small university. We feel like family to each other, and you come back to campus, and it's so small, you feel like, well, I own this place. I'm so comfortable here, that you walk in and you're, wait, I can't, I want to park here, or I want to sit there, or I want to, and then like, well, no, only, Paladin Club members can sit here because they've paid for the right to sit here or park here. And then all of a sudden it starts getting sensitive and people's feelings get hurt. And that's the business of college athletics.
Sure.
But the great news is that, I think there's so much room to grow. We are in such a great spot at this university that, and with the leadership we have with Elizabeth Davis and Mike Buddy, they, I think, are putting us on a trajectory that is going to send us into the stratosphere.
I agree. I agree 100%. And I can also promise you that if you have been thinking about coming and you're wondering about those great seats, those great parking places, there are plenty of them available right here behind me on Saturdays.
That's right.
And we've got to get an engagement. We've got to get people in here. And Clint, one of the things that will help do that, and I know this is, you deal with primarily alumni, but you have to start engaging them while they're here on campus. And one thing I've noticed, I'm in my 6th year here now, is that we seem to finally be getting a little more engagement of the students. I look at what they've done at basketball in the past couple of years and what a difference they can make.
Yeah.
And so what programs or what efforts do you have to engage the students now so they'll become active donating members of the Paladin Club later?
Well, I'll give you a new example. We've got a donor. I'll tell you, he's the president of the Paladin Club board. Well, I'll just say it. Charlie Mosley, he deserves the credit. But he has stepped up, and he is going to make a contribution to the Paladin Club in honor of all the graduating senior student athletes. So they'll all, in the first year that they're out, they'll all be members of the Paladin Club, which is pretty special. At the Foospies, which is the Furman version of the ESPYs,
Right.
which is hilarious and great. The kids do an awesome job with it. Charlie's going to stand up. I'm going to stand up and say, here's what the Paladin Club is. Here's why you should get involved and stay involved. And by the way, this guy has donated, your first year of membership, and you should be very appreciative of that. And he's going to stand up and make a plea for these folks too, to say, guys, don't disappear. We need you. And it goes back to there's not a million of us.
Right.
The few, the proud.
Exactly.
Yeah, let's stay involved and stay active and make Furman, the place that we all want it to be.
Yeah, and you run into enough obstacles anyway, and the academic reputation of this university brings in a certain number of students that have no interest in athletics because of what their focus is.
Right.
And I understand that, but as you've got to find a way to engage as many of them as you can and get them involved. And I just continue to point to basketball and what we've seen transpire here over the last 2 seasons
Right.
at Timmons Arena. Now we've got to take that and we need to double it or triple it, get them here in the state and staying beyond halftime
Right.
each and every week, and using that as one of the springboards to getting more people who are giving you checks once they graduate.
Yeah, and across the board, it's, support what you love.
Yeah.
And what, to your point, if they love going to Furman basketball games when they're in school as students, when they get out, chances are when they have little kids that they're going to want to bring them to those games and say, I used to sit over there with the wild and crazy kids over there making a lot of noise. But, this isn't just a Furman issue. I mean,
Oh, no.
what was in the news several years ago where Nick Saban got all over the Alabama students for leaving at halftime?
Yeah.
This is not just our issue. I've always said, and I've thought about this for the last 16 years, even when I was a student, had an internship in the athletic department, thinking, how can I get my fellow students at games? It takes 50% of the student body to make it look like anybody's here. If you get 10% of the students, Furman students, at a football game, it's 200 kids.
Yeah.
250 kids. You can sit 16,000 people in the stadium. That's a very small number. Okay, so start doing the math and taking it up. Well, if you get 10% of the students at Clemson to a game, well, you got 2,000 kids somewhere. Now, that's starting to feel like a lot of people. So it's hard to get any group of people to move 50% of them to go to a football game or a basketball game. And so that's kind of the big complication is it takes a huge majority to feel like we've got a great student crowd. And like you said, these kids too, they come on this campus and they have so many interests. It's not just football. They have so many things. There's outdoors clubs. There's club sports that, a lot of the people who might come to a football game and have a predisposition to athletics, they might be playing club soccer on a Saturday afternoon or rugby, or there's just so many opportunities for these kids, not to mention sitting in the parking lot and watching 17 other college football games at the same time.
Tailgating and taking all that in.
And that doesn't mean we're not working on it and going after it, but it's such an interesting time with entertainment and engagement. It's hard to get people's attention.
And that's the reason why I'm asking these questions, because I want the people who are watching this live and the hundreds who will see it once we post it on YouTube or more.
Thousands.
Hundreds
of thousands.
You say that, but that's becoming a more and more popular thing. We want them to understand that these are the challenges that we're facing here, and the good news is, if you look at the overall state of the athletic department, it's in very, very good shape. And now you add the excitement of the football program. Do we need to further engage the students? Yes. Do we need to further engage the Greenville community? Yes. But I think we're headed in that direction. And my goal is to do whatever I can from this side of things to help in that. And that's getting the information out and helping people understand the challenges that people in your position are having to overcome. And I think, like anything else, Clay comes out and runs off a 9-2 or an 8-3 season and wins a SoCon championship, then ticket sales are going to come up and donations are going to come in. But until then, man, it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah, it is. And it's, the key for us, especially in the Paladin Club, is we want to be prepared for that success.
Right.
So we don't want to be surprised by it. We want to help them get there. And if we're talking specifically football, let's raise this $1 million so Clay knows for the next 5 years he can buy the new goalposts and get out and recruit. He doesn't have to make hard decisions like that. That he shouldn't have to make. But then beyond that, how do we market and get out in front of people? How do we get people in the stands? And it's an external affairs issue, Dan. It's not just the Paladin Club. It's ticketing with Dwight Covington. It's athletic marketing with Mike Arnold. We have meetings and sit around and talk about these things, and we want to be ready so when there are 18,000 people back at Paladin Stadium watching a playoff football game, we're not surprised by that. And we've got it ready to rock and roll.
And I think it's coming soon.
I agree.
I really do. A couple more things and we'll let you go. You wanted to mention the new seating at the baseball stadium, which was supposed to be installed this weekend. That's been pushed back a couple of weeks to the end of March. But what few chairback seats we have in there now are coming out, and about 850 new ones, I think, is the number, are coming in, and people actually have a chance to buy naming rights for a seat, right?
That's right. Yeah, we've got a special deal right now. So for $500, as these new seats come in, you can buy the naming rights to one of the seats. Of course, that doesn't mean you're going to get to sit in that seat every time you come to Latham Stadium, but it will be there on a plaque, in perpetuity until we, buy new seats, maybe 25 or 30 years from now. But it's a special idea, maybe as a birthday present, or just to honor someone that is special to you in your life. And the proceeds of that are actually going into the baseball program. So Brett Harker will be able to use that money in the project that he's working on right now, which we've done so many in the last 3 months. It's unbelievable. With the new scoreboard, the new bullpen, the dugouts have been painted. This new seat project, they've lasered the infield. That's actually really cool. I love that. But so many great things happening and so much momentum. But he wants to put a pad on the outfield fence. So it'll enclose the stadium. And the padding will be green, like a minor league baseball park, right? And it will have Furman graphics on it and Paladin graphics on it. It's like Furman baseball. It's a really neat deal, and it's about a $40,000 project. We've sold 50 seats so far. Well, just under 50, like I think 47 seats. So we're about halfway there. We've got about $24,000 that we've raised towards that $40,000 goal.
That's fantastic.
So now I get married in June. I've told people that I'm not shaving my beard until we accomplish this goal and get this padding on the outfield fence for Brett. My fiance is worried about that. She doesn't want me to have a beard for the wedding. So I've got about 3 months to raise the extra $20,000.
And if it comes down to having to make that decision on the wedding day, who's going to win that battle?
I think we all know the answer
Yeah,
to that.
yes, we do.
I'll have my razor out.
I
quickly.
just wanted to get it on film for her to see, just in case. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, and at some juncture, we need to start talking about revamping and rebuilding the press box.
Yeah, that's right.
Too. Yeah,
we've got big plans for it, but we at this point are trying to knock out some of these little projects.
Exactly.
Which, if you haven't been to a game yet this year, you can see it and feel it. The park is really looking nice right now, and you could see if we had a new press box, and it would just change, the complete complexion of that park.
Brett Harker, as he so often does, corrected me. 888 seats.
I knew that too, Brett, but there's rules of radio, and you don't correct the host. Right? You don't correct the host.
No, I mean if I'm wrong, it's 850, 888.
Give or take.
Yeah, that's right.
Give or take, approximately.
Yeah, and aren't you supposed to be like coaching a team or riding a bus and plotting out how we're going to beat Ole Miss or something like that now?
I love it, Brett. Good luck.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good luck down there, man.
And I'll see you sometime in about the next 8 hours or so. If people want to get in touch with you, and we've somehow inspired them or frightened them into writing a check or whatever the case, or wanting more information, in all seriousness, how do they do that?
So my email is pretty easy, clint.hill@furman.edu. That's usually the best way to get me, or I'll just, you can get on FurmanPaladinClub.com, and you can find me there. Got my office line and my cell phone number there as well. And anybody in our office, the development office, will be happy to take your call and give you as much information as we can. But this is such a great time for Furman athletics. I've never been more bullish about where we're heading, and I really, really think that the people whoever's listening right now, get involved and support the things that you love, and we'll get to where we're trying to go a lot faster with the resources we need.
Outstanding. Clint, thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
That's Clint Hill. We'll take a break, come back, and put a wrap on things on this edition of the program, and then it's off to Oxford, Mississippi. We'll be back right after this.
You can party hardy at your next Paladin Tailgate Extravaganza with ABC Party Rentals and Amusement.